Welcome to the Wyoming Women's Business Center's 2020 webinar series. Today's presentation is Selling Skills, course number 2, What Do I Say? I'm Christine Langley with the Wyoming Women's Business Center, and I'll be your speaker today. Just to clarify, this webinar is the second in a series of 6 webinars focused on selling skills. And each session is recorded and available for viewing to all registered attendees. So you'll notice the GoToWebinar control panel on the right side of your screen, and I want to call attention to the questions panel. If you have any comments or questions during the webinar today, I'd like you to use those to communicate with us. Now, immediately following this presentation, a survey is going to launch, and we ask you to complete the survey because it provides us and our funding partners with valuable information. Now, all participants are muted to minimize background noise, so once again, if you have any questions during the presentation, just type them into the questions panel. We're going to get started with some quick information about the Wyoming Women's Business Center, and then we'll dive into our topic today and finish up with a Q&A at the end. Now, this is our new 30-minute format, and so we appreciate everyone joining us today during what might be your lunch break. The WWBC is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to enable and empower Wyoming entrepreneurs, with a special emphasis on women who are economically or socially disadvantaged. And so we do that through 4 distinct programs. The first is our business counseling and training program, which is always free. The second is our microfinance programs, which offer microloans and individual development accounts. The third is an artist development center we run in conjunction with our Works of Wyoming store and our Art Connect gallery in downtown Laramie. And then lastly, we recently launched a 1-year program for COVID-19 support. Now, this particular webinar series is brought to you by our microfinance program, and so I want to call special attention to our microloan program. We can provide loans for those unable to get loans through traditional means up to $50,000. And so if you'd like more information, you can contact our office. So let's do a quick recap of our sales funnel from our first session. We talked about identifying the stages of our sales process using these terms, and our goal is to drive people from suspects to prospects, prospects to customers, and customers to advocates. Now remember, selling or prospecting is about identifying and contacting potential customers, which we call suspects or prospects, to generate interest. Lead generation or marketing is all about creating that interest organically. So again, marketing is everything that happens before we meet a prospect. Selling is everything that happens after we meet that prospect. So I understand that most of us would really prefer to have our prospects contact us and express interest first. And I hope that your marketing plans offer you plenty of organic interest. However, in lots of businesses, we actually have to go out and prospect to directly sell to our suspects and prospects. And so this training is for that purpose. But again, it assumes that you have a prospect in front of you already. And so that's where we start. Our agenda today is going to cover the opening step of our 8-step selling model. And the opening alone is actually broken into a 4-step system. So embedded in the opening, we have 4 steps. The first is greeting, then get attention, next create interest, and finally asking for time. So I'd like you to have a pen and paper handy or open a document on your screen so that you can type as we go along. And my goal is for you to have a basic opening script by the end of our training today. So let's start with a greeting. Most of us have this line down already, right? This is your basic introduction. And so on your paper document or on your screen, you can type or write out your own personal greeting. And plagiarism is totally welcomed here. You're welcome to use my example, just replace the names as needed. And so mine sounds like this. Hello, Shelley. I'm Christine with the Wyoming Women's Business Center. How are you? Okay, now you might notice that there's a picture of a telephone on the screen right now. And so obviously this is telephone language. But this same script, this same opening can also be used in person. And it sounds much the same You may just be a little bit more casual in your tone, or the way you express your greeting. So if you're in some kind of an environment where people are just walking up to you, say in a retail store, then you may not spell out all of these words, right? You may say something like, "Hey, how you doing? I'm with the Women's Business Center." And that would be your greeting. So I just want you to write your own greeting statement that applies to your business. And so go ahead and do that now. All right, our next step is get attention. And so the reason we need an attention statement is to shift your prospect's focus to you from whatever they were doing prior to your call or prior to your engagement. And so it's always good to focus on something that you have in common, something that's familiar, or what I like to use, especially if I have it handy, is a referral. So in my example, I say, "Tom Smith suggested I contact you about your online marketing." Again, you're welcome to use my example and just replace some words, or go ahead and write down your own attention statement. Your attention statement is step 2 of your opening. All right, step 3 of your opening is developing your interest statement. Now, it's important to remember that your interest statement needs to answer the WIFM. And the WIFM is, what's in it for me? So we have the option of using benefits or pain or both to create this interest statement. And we always want to offer an idea rather than mentioning our product or service. Now, why don't I want you to start talking about your product and service yet? The reason is what I like to call the show up and throw up method. So prospects at the end of the day, they really just care about themselves, right? Not you and your business. So before we show up and throw up all the information about our business, we really need to create some interest in our prospect so that they're going to want to hear from us. And we can do this with a powerful interest statement. Additionally, we never want to present features and benefits of our business until we actually understand the needs of our prospects. All right, so there's 3 different types of interest statements. The first is, again, a benefit statement. Then second, a pain or loss avoidance statement. Or you can do a combination of the 2 above. We also have an insurance or a backup interest statement if the first one we try doesn't get the result we want. So let's start by writing out your benefit interest statement. It accentuates the positive, and it sounds something like, "I have some ideas to increase your website traffic and sales." All right, so I want you to go ahead and jot down your version of a benefit interest statement for your business. And again, we're presenting some ideas. We're not presenting our product. All right, our next interest statement is the pain loss avoidance. Now, this type of statement can create some discomfort for your prospect, and sometimes it can be a little uncomfortable for you to deliver. But practice can help you overcome your own kind of cringing when you deliver some painful news to a prospect. So the example that I have here is, "I have some ideas to prevent your competitors from gaining market share." So again, I want you to go ahead and jot down your version of a pain loss avoidance interest statement for your business. We're still sharing ideas. It's just that we're creating some discomfort in order to try to get them interested in talking to us right now. And then lastly is the combination interest statement. Now, this can often be the most effective because if one statement doesn't get the prospect interested, then the other might. So you can see my example simply combines my previous statements into one sentence. "I have some ideas to increase your website traffic and sales and prevent your competitors from gaining market share." So create a compound sentence, take your benefit interest statement, your pain loss avoidance statement, and just put them together, and that's your combination interest statement. So you should now have 3 different interest statements at your disposal. All right, good job, everybody. Now, regardless of which interest statement you decided to use, the final step of the opening is asking for time. And that sounds something like this. Do you have a few minutes to talk? Now, notice I'm asking for time right now. I'm not asking to schedule an appointment. And that's because my primary objective is to get to the next step in my sales process. And I can do that in my initial engagement. I don't have to stop. I don't need to wait for an appointment. Now, my backup or my secondary objective is just to verify my prospect's information, right? Are they the decision maker? Is this the correct contact information? Are they still in business, right? So if I can verify some of that information, then I'm going to consider my opening still successful in meeting a secondary objective, even if I don't make it to the next step of the sales process, which is my primary objective. All right, so sometimes I get the question, why do you recommend that you ask for time as the final step in your opening? Doesn't that give the prospect an opportunity to say no? Why don't you just launch, into your sales process? The answer is, yeah, they could say no. And we have a plan for that. It's called our insurance statement, and we're going to cover that next. However, if you piqued their interest with your interest statement, then they could say yes to time. And that's the first yes in your sales process. We want your prospect to be saying yes throughout your sales process so that when we get to the close, they're accustomed to saying yes. It's also important that you have their permission to continue to the next step of the sales process, which is gathering information. Because if you don't have people's permission, then they lose interest really quickly anyway. Now, to play devil's advocate here, let's assume they say no, and therefore it's time to use our insurance interest statement. Now, our insurance interest statement uses some techniques we're also going to learn about in overcoming objections in a future session. But if your prospect says no when you ask for time, and typically people will say something like, I'm really busy right now, then you can take that as your first objection. A no doesn't mean a no forever. It just means they presented you with an objection right out the gate. And so it's important to always express empathy first before you use another interest statement. And you'll also want to be sure to intensify your interest statement from the last statement you used. Meaning if you started with a benefit statement, you'll need to use a pain or combination statement next. Now, if you used a combination statement, then you'll want to go straight to pain for your insurance statement. And so an insurance statement could sound something like this. Look, I understand how busy you are, and the ideas I have for you are already producing results for your competitors. It's worth 10 minutes to learn how you can improve your website traffic and experience the same success, isn't it? All right, so putting our whole opening script together now, it's going to sound something like this. Hi, Shelley. I'm Christine with WWBC. How are you? Oh, good, thanks. Hey, listen, Tom Smith suggested I connect with you about your online marketing. And I've got some ideas to increase your website traffic and prevent your competitors from gaining market share. Do you have a few minutes to talk? Oh, Christine, I'm pretty busy right now. I totally understand how busy you are. And the ideas I have for you are already producing results for your competitors. It's worth 10 minutes to learn how you can improve your website traffic and get the same success, isn't it? Yeah, okay, 10 minutes. All right, so this is your full opening. And so I want you to take a look at your greeting, your get attention statement, your interest statement, how you asked for time, and then finally your insurance statement. And that is a complete opening. Now, next week, we're going to talk about how you transition into the next step of the sales process and the best ways to gather information by using powerful questions. And so speaking of questions, now is your opportunity to ask some questions in that questions panel. And so as you do that, I'm just going to cover some closing information. All right, the Wyoming Women's Business Center is made possible through several partnership agencies, and the center's primary funding comes from the U.S. Small Business Administration and the Wyoming Business Council. And so, of course, we're thankful for their support and guidance. This is some contact information for the Women's Business Center. You can reach out to our business counselors, which is always free. And then if you're interested in our microloan program, you've got the microfinance department information right there. And then my contact information is on the screen as well. And you're welcome to call me anytime throughout this series to ask additional questions about your specific case. Upcoming webinars, this is the one we did today, Selling Skills course, What Do I Say? And then the 2 more in September are Asking Questions to Your Advantage and Presenting Features and Benefits. If you're already registered for the course, then you'll automatically get the reminders for the courses coming up. And again, recordings of all of these sessions will be available online and sent to you after each Tuesday. And then finally, when we close out today, I'm going to ask you to complete a survey. It really helps us to gather information and know what kind of resources we can be providing you that'll be helpful for your business going forward. And so I'm going to leave my contact information up on the screen right now and just head over here to the questions panel and see what we had come in. Okay, it looks like we've got a question about trade shows, or when you're in an environment where people are just quickly walking by versus an actual phone call that you're making, or after the prospect is in front of you. And so again, I just want to remind you that marketing is everything that you do in order to identify a prospect. Selling is everything you do after you have a prospect in front of you. And so this selling skills training is after you've already identified your prospect. So if you are in a trade show type environment, or say a farmer's market type environment where people are just walking by, I want to encourage you to focus on your marketing messages that you have within your booth in order to draw people into you organically so that you have an opportunity to connect with them, versus pushing yourself and your product or service out to the crowd where they then feel uncomfortable and want to avoid you, right? So if you want to talk more about how to bring someone in to a trade show booth or a farmer's market, experience, then I'm happy to do some one-on-one counseling with you offline. Again, this selling course is all about engaging with a prospect that we've already identified. All right, everybody, thanks again for joining us today. And as we close out the webinar, I encourage you to take our survey quickly, and we'll see everybody next Tuesday. Have a great week.